Right. My name is Hanna, and my topic is the safety of recreational marijuana usage. In 1970, the Controlled Substances Act passed into federal law, and a new federal agency, the Drug Enforcement Administration, was created under the Department of Justice to enforce the act. This act also established 5 schedules for substances based on their demonstrated safety and abuse potential. A drug is supposed to be placed in the highest schedule, Schedule 1, if the drug or other substance has a high potential for abuse, has no currently accepted medical use in the United States, and there is a lack of accepted safety for the use under medical supervision. The Schedule 1 list includes heroin, marijuana, LSD, MDMA, mushrooms, peyote, and mescaline. Many are surprised to learn that cocaine, opium, morphine, and oxycodone are Schedule 2 drugs, and anabolic steroids are listed in Schedule 3, and alcohol and tobacco are exempted from the system completely. My claim is that marijuana is less harmful than its legal alternatives, and I'll be focusing specifically on tobacco and alcohol. My first claim is that marijuana is less damaging to your lungs than tobacco. According to a study done at the University of California in San Francisco, it was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. It was a study done on 5,000 men and women who smoked 1 joint every day for 7 years. And at the end of that, they measured the amount of air that their lungs were able to hold for a certain amount of time, and they found that there was little to no damage done to the lungs at all. Contrawise, there was another study done in Britain of 45,000 men whose only commonality was that they smoked tobacco cigarettes habitually. And at the end of the 50-year study, a little less than half of them had died of lung cancer. So you can conclude from that at least that marijuana is less harmful than tobacco. Okay, so my second point is that marijuana is a lot less dangerous than alcohol. According to the Department of Transportation, in 2010, 10,228 people were killed in an alcohol-induced driving crash, accounting for nearly 1/3 of all traffic-related deaths in the United States, whereas marijuana accounted for 279 marijuana-related accidents, and nobody's ever died from marijuana overdose. And to further that, according to a Yale study, most marijuana-intoxicated drivers show only modest impairments, and they tend to overestimate how impaired they are, so as a result, they drive more cautiously and slower, whereas people who are under the influence of alcohol tend to underestimate their degree of impairment and therefore pose a bigger danger to themselves and those around them. My last claim. Marijuana is medically beneficial, unlike tobacco and alcohol, which severely harm your health. Medical marijuana is legal in 18 states, and Washington, D.C., and according to an article in the New England Journal of Medicine, in states in which it is legal, doctors recommend medical marijuana for many conditions. Frequently those that are chronic. And these would include nausea, especially as a result of chemotherapy, loss of appetite, chronic pain, anxiety, arthritis, cancer, AIDS, glaucoma, multiple sclerosis, insomnia, ADHD, epilepsy, inflammation, migraines, and Crohn's disease. And the drug can be used as a way to, drastically increase the quality of life for somebody who's terminally ill and dying. So overall, marijuana is far safer than its legal alternatives, specifically tobacco and alcohol. It's less harmful to your lungs than tobacco. It's safer and causes less deaths than alcohol, and it can increase your quality of life, or it can increase the quality of life for terminally ill or chronically ill patients, and that's it.
All right, Hannah, the proposition is clearly identified, so I think that's good. You've got a preview that's all right. It's a little unclear to me why you've chosen to make the comparison to tobacco and alcohol, since you mentioned in the historical information that they're specifically excluded from the classification of the schedule of drugs from the Drug Control Act of 1970. So it seems like it would make more sense to do the comparison to the other drugs that are used the same way that you're talking about on that third point. And in essence, you're making the argument that marijuana has these medical benefits. Well, let's compare marijuana to the things that you were talking about so that the comparisons are equivalent. I don't think anybody makes any claim of safety for either tobacco and there are some medical claims for alcohol use, but there aren't any health claims for tobacco use. And I think everybody acknowledges that both tobacco use and alcohol use are dangerous. So there's not much controversy there. Now the question is it safe for people to use for the purpose that you're talking about, which is the third point. So I think it would make more sense for you to be talking about how marijuana is a safer treatment for cancer patients than the analgesics that they currently take, than the pain meds that they have, like OxyContin or morphine or any of those sorts of things, that it doesn't reduce their quality of life, it produces the same outcome. That's really the comparison that would make the most sense. You've got data, like I said, on alcohol and tobacco. Nobody in here thinks that either of those things is a good thing in the way they're being used. People might enjoy alcohol, but they don't think people should be driving drunk, and they all know that there are problems associated with it. But for instance, if some of those other drugs, there are adverse drug reactions or problems with them, that would make them more dangerous, for instance, than marijuana to use for the thing, well, you mentioned nausea, but there were also some other, you had a long list of ailments. So that's what I think it might have been a good idea to maybe pick 2 or 3 of those and focus on what the comparative drugs were there. And that's where you need a little bit more data. The fact that all these states have allowed marijuana to be used for medical purposes doesn't necessarily show that they have medical purposes. It simply shows what the political will of people in that situation was. It's like just because we made it a law that we are able to do something doesn't mean that what we're doing is a good thing or it works. So a policy can't be used to justify a factual claim. What you need is more medical data about the applications of marijuana to those diseases. And that's where I thought that the argument was insufficient. All right, but it's well organized and you did a nice job delivering it. Thank you.